health, water resources, human settlements, coastal zones. We are all going to feel impacts in those areas, every single one of us, from temperature increases, from decreased rainfall, from sea level rise, from increases in the intensity of and the frequency of these events in terms of heavy precipitation. We all know the flooding that we experience. We all know the serious drought that we had earlier this year, the forest fires, which, they talk about naturally occurring forest fires. I think that's a myth. But we are going to face serious costs to mitigate and even higher costs to adapt. If you have to build shoreline defenses, I mean, you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars to put up some sort of engineering solution for the Southwestern Peninsula. If we are to look at, for example, Petrotrin, they have done vulnerability assessments to sea level rise, and they're going to have serious problems with their installations. So the costs are going to come up to us. These are just some images to give you, these are all taken in Trinidad. Yeah? So that drought-stricken piece of parched land you see there, at forest fire, those floods, all here. So let's look at the local context, the policy framework, the legislative framework for carbon management in Trinidad and Tobago. We have two primary pieces of policy and framework to look at. The National Environmental Policy, which is coming out of the Environmental Management Act, which established the Environmental Management Authority. There's also the fact that Trinidad and Tobago is signatory to many multilateral environmental agreements. For example, the United Nations Framework Convention, the Convention to Combat Desertification, the Vienna Convention. And all of these have their own obligations on the country. Management of GHGs, reduction of ozone-depleting substances, and land use planning and management. Some other government initiatives recently articulated by the present government: development of a national energy policy, not just renewable energy, but an energy policy, establishing a recycling industry, strengthening of the EMA as a regulatory arm related to environmental management, amendment of the Green Fund legislation to allow access by those NGOs and CBOs that are incorporated under the Companies Act, innovation financing facility for small business development, and measures to support alternative energy use, CNG, solar water heating, wind energy, conducting energy audits. All of these are initiatives that are being supported and mechanisms are being put in place by the government related to carbon management. Looking at the EMA, I'm not going to pull out the big stick part of what we do. I'm pulling out the carrot. We are mandated to develop, promote, and implement appropriate incentive programs that encourage the voluntary use of effective environmental management systems. And some of these things include voluntary facility environmental audits, environmental certification or labeling programs, green certification or eco-labeling, and deposit refund systems for specified materials. So these are some of the things that we are mandated to do under the Act that are actually part of what is going to be looked at in this project, if I understand it correctly. The National Environmental Policy, in the section on energy, looks at the use of solar photovoltaic systems for electricity generation, storage, biogasification systems, solar thermal applications. All of these have been mentioned by the previous speakers. Wind energy. And these are all things that are already in the policy framework documents, in the legal documents that govern environmental management in Trinidad and Tobago. The NEP also looks at establishing standards for energy efficiency, for the technologies against the pollutants that they emit. So all of these are already here. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel in a lot of these instances. Again, Mr. Kumar Singh is going to go into greater detail into the environmental policies that are being proposed and underway. So let's look at global carbon trading. The Kyoto Protocol introduced 3 market-based mechanisms and therefore created the carbon market, the global carbon market. The three of them are emissions trading, clean development mechanism, and joint implementation. The one that concerns us is the CDM, because it allows an Annex 1 party, and an Annex 1 party to the UNFCCC is a party that has a target to meet in terms of emissions reductions. A non-Annex 1 party, such as Trinidad and Tobago, is party to the convention but does not have the similar targets to meet. And the CDM is a mechanism by which we can work with each other. And I'll talk to you about what we're doing here locally under the CDM. So carbon trading on the local market now. We have the River Swamp Restoration, Carbon Sequestration, and Livelihoods Project. We're looking to reforest 1,339 hectares in the River Swamp ESA. And this is being funded through the Green Fund, thank you very much, to a very significant sum. You know, it's the largest project that they have in their portfolio right now. And we have signed, coming out of that, an emissions reduction purchase agreement with the World Bank as the trustee of the biocarbon fund. So there are a lot of large Annex 1 investors putting money into this biocarbon fund, and they agreed to purchase the carbon sequestered in the replanted trees in this project. Now, the opportunity exists for local operators to get involved in something like this. This marks the entry of Trinidad and Tobago into global carbon trading mechanism market under the CDM, and it is the only project in the world to be undertaken in a wetland area using the specific methodology outlined by the World Bank. There was one other they were considering, but that fell through. We're the only project in the world using this particular methodology in a wetland. So it's very significant for us. So looking at how do we actually manage carbon, the first thing to understand is that the carbon, climate, human system requires a systems approach to management. You can't manage one without the other. Okay? It has to be integrated. So these are some of the basic elements, and I didn't go into any great detail, but these are the top ones I think that you need to consider, and without which any carbon management strategy is more than likely to fail. You need to establish a baseline from which you're working, because otherwise you can't measure success. What are you putting out now? What is your carbon footprint? Then you need to set targets, referencing those baselines. So you emit an X as of now. You want to get to X minus Y by the next 10 years. You have to develop sector-specific carbon reduction strategies and management plans, and develop mechanisms for monitoring and reporting. Because I can tell you, if you want to get into any of the mechanisms under the Kyoto Protocol and the Clean Development Mechanism, you have to have very, very rigid standards for your monitoring and reporting and valuation and verification. It's really, really difficult. You want to establish funding mechanisms for these strategies. If the private sector can establish some sort of private equity fund or something along those lines, because finance is going to be an issue. How are you going to finance all the strategies you want to put in place? Cooperate with the regulatory agencies, and that's a plug for us. Okay. Us, the Ministry of Energy, other agencies, other state agencies, TCPD, for example, cooperate with the regulatory agencies. Let's get this right from the ground up. And again, this point has been raised and it cannot be overemphasized. Communications, education, and public awareness. You have to build that into any strategy that you're looking to develop for managing carbon. It must be done, because if people don't understand why they're being asked to do what they're being asked to do, you will not get the support and your strategy will fail. Now we get to what this presentation is supposed to be all about. I can tell you it could just be one slide, and this is it. Carbon dioxide, recognized as a major anthropogenic greenhouse gas. We have the power to reduce its emission and thereby reduce